We're constantly being told by Keir Starmer and his government that they operate strictly within the law, that every decision from overseas deployments to border policy is guided by international legal obligations. And then the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, he writes his little memo to Keir and Keir makes his decision, well, doesn't even make his decision, he just does what he's told. But fine, if that's the standard, let's apply it consistently across the board. Because this week we've had 3 drones that have been launched towards RAF Akrotiri. You could argue that we don't know who did it, but I think we can all guess. One of them reportedly impacted, but we know from the ground that it did impact. We're told that the damage is minimal, but we know that, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, it could have hit a US plane, it could have hit the cookhouse, it could have hit quarters, yeah? And then we're told by John Healey, the Defence Secretary, that it was accidental, or it could have been accidental. Well, you know what? Once, maybe that explanation holds. But 3 times, come on, it looks far less like misfortune and more like probing. And the thing with this as well is that RAF Akrotiri, it's not just one of our forward operating bases overseas. It sits within Britain's sovereign base area in Cyprus, and this is British sovereign territory. If something strikes it, it's not just like a distant foreign policy issue, it's a direct security matter. And Article 51 of the UN Charter, if you want the law, it recognises the inherent right to self-defence if an armed attack occurs either on you or one of your allies. So the question is straightforward. If a sovereign UK base is struck by hostile drones, does that meet the threshold of an armed attack? If it does, why was that right not invoked? If it does not, then where exactly is this threshold? Deterrence. It is not built on speeches, it is built on absolute lines and certainty and clarity. Because adversaries, they're always going to test. They're going to test with a little small something first, a drone or a cyber attack, a limited strike. And that's why the Russians are always going around our coastline. They watch the response. If it's muted or ambiguous, they learn something. And the issue is not whether physical damage was minor, the issue is what signal is sent back to them. What our response is. And we've just been told today that the Royal Navy's HMS Dragon is going to move down to the Med to reinforce the defence of Cyprus. And that's because currently we've got the French and the Greeks protecting our people, our troops and their families on the sovereign base area. But our HMS Dragon, it requires preparation. It requires provisioning. It's not been loaded up. Its crew haven't been to sea since December. So they're going to need a transit, sea trials, and it's going to take at least a week before it gets on station. And that raises serious questions. If tensions are escalating and Allied fleets, we know about the 2 US carrier groups that were moving down towards the Med.